Welcome to Reformcast this week. Today we have Commissioner John Jay in studio, and we're going to be just talking about Charter Commission some more, and because it's really the most important thing that you haven't heard much about. And so, Commissioner John Jay, welcome in.
Thank you, Rob. And I would definitely agree with you that the charter is definitely one of the most important things you haven't heard about, and I'd like to thank you for allowing me to share with more people about it.
Yeah, no worries. I'm glad that you're here. So, you have been on the Charter Commission now, and it's been in full force, and really, you guys are meeting like every week, aren't you?
Every week for about 3 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, so I catch a lot of those meetings. Now, then you also have like committee meetings or sub meetings and stuff like that. So it's quite a bit.
Yep. I've been thanked a little bit by rainy weekends to let me have some heads down time at my desk on weekends to get some of these work cranked out. But now that summer's here, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But we are entering the season where we're actually voting on things to be on the ballot right about now. So.
Yeah. So any of your friends or family like call you commissioner, or do you correct them and say, that's Commissioner John Jay?
Yeah, I'll be at Safeway and I'll be buying something and they'll be like, oh, thank you, Mr. J, when I put in my phone number, and then I'll be like, that's Commissioner J to you.
He's joking. He doesn't really do that, but I would if I was on the Charter Commission.
It's a cool title, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely use it while you got it.
Way cooler than counselor, even though it might not be as esteemed as counselor in terms of power, but it's still a cool title.
That's pretty cool. So so you guys are full steam ahead, and it's starting to get into crunch time where there's going to be some votes on charter review. For those that don't know, the charter is like the county constitution. So you've got the United States Constitution, you got the state constitution, and you got the charter for Clark County. And you guys are looking at amendments. And so kind of walk me through some of the charter amendments that you've been working on, that you've sponsored, and that are coming up. Maybe kind of start with most important, and they're all your babies, they're all important, but there's ones that kind of maybe stand out.
Yeah, thankfully the two that were most my babies are the ones that are still alive. The first one, we'll go with 26-08 as the first one I'll reference, which is the supermajority requirement for taxes, for any tax increase in the county. So that would be both sales taxes as well as property taxes. So this would require, the legal language says 2/3 minimum requirement. That's so that in case other charter amendments move forward, whether in this commission or future commissions, if the council increases in size along with the population of Clark County, that this will still remain in place. I took a very similar language from Pierce County. But 2/3, even though we have a 5-member commission, translates to 4 of our current counselors that would have to vote in favor of a tax increase in order for it to move forward.
So why do you think that this is so important? I mean, why do you think we need a supermajority requirement for tax increases?
Well, if you look at the context of what's happening in Olympia with the crazy amount of tax increases that have come out, both the income tax, B&O tax, new B&O taxes, local taxes coming out of Vancouver, even some sales taxes increases in Clark County in general as well, that have really raised the cost of living of being here. And what has made Washington State so successful is our open business climate that has been dramatically eroded in the last several legislative sessions and beyond that as well, especially since Democrats have accumulated more power in this state. But they have made it so hard to have, start a business, cost of living in this state. And so this is, I believe, sort of a stand against both the bad policies that are coming out of Olympia and to try to protect the cost of living here, ensure more seniors are able to stay in their homes, just try to address their affordability, but also it helps with home ownership. Mm-hmm. It helps with development. It helps with all sorts of goals. And not to say that the county doesn't need revenue, but ultimately I think people need their dollars more, and these are tough times now, I think.
Yeah, when I gave public comment in support of this a couple weeks ago, I just made mention that, hey, I think that it shouldn't be the same standard for just like a, National Poetry Month proclamation, which right now it's the same. So 3 votes gets you more money from taxpayers. And I just think it should be a higher threshold. And in theory, and I think in practice too, that this will require a little more bipartisan work in order to, get more taxes, tax revenue from the tax base. And so I see how it's a good thing. And then I just see how every single Democrat is against it that's on the charter review. And it just is kind of makes me scratch my head because all of them talk about affordability and it's affordability, it's so important, affordability, we got to help but then they vote time and time again for not only those higher taxes that what we've seen in Olympia and also here in Clark County, but we also see it where then they vote against the supermajority requirements. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, it does make sense, but it doesn't make sense if you really are for affordability, because this your charter amendment, it really does help for affordability. I mean, it's putting policy into action.
Absolutely, and with having that requirement with the 4/5 requirement, for one, a lot of the feedback that we've gotten on it is that what about emergencies? What about financial emergencies? And to actually declare a state of emergency in the county is a 4/5 vote. So that sort of undermines that purpose. But I've also heard arguments that, in all those years that the county did not choose to take the 1%, we've lost $15 million. And they frame it in such a way that they make it seem like we took this $15 million and burned it.
Yeah.
But no, we kept the $15 million when
taxpayers kept it.
Yeah, they kept it.
They got to keep the $15 million.
Yeah, they got to.
Hey, that's great.
Put gas in their car. They got to buy a new fence. They got to put money to send their kid to college. They could buy a hamburger, anything. And then that money doesn't stop there either. It continues to multiply in the economy.
But Democrats, for some reason, have this view that it's their money or that it's better off in the government's coffers. Like that's where it belongs. And so I think that's a great point, what you're bringing up.
Yeah, and it's a weird level of entitlement, but it's ultimately our money. And obviously, government requires revenue too, but it should be done extremely deliberately. And as you mentioned earlier, compromise. But with only 3 people voting on raising taxes for whatever you're at, $550,000 in Clark County, that's just, I just want more consensus, and I don't really see what's so controversial about that. And plenty of tax increases have passed in Clark County with 4/5 votes.
Yeah.
We can be more targeted. There could be more negotiation, such as, I'll agree to raise taxes here if we cut here, or I'll raise taxes if it only goes to public safety. There's all sorts of agreements that could be made, and when we move forward with this.
So what's the next step? Where is this at in the development? Because there's several votes. There's all kinds of first reading, second reading, drafting committee, and all that. So where is it right now, and what should we look forward to?
Yeah, our work plan is a marathon of votes. I think we have our first readings. It's gone through our second readings. And then it goes to our study committee. And within the study committee is when we finally draft the language for the resolution, the whereas language of legalese form.
Right.
And then it's finally presented, and it requires 8 votes after this to get out of the study committee to go to the drafting committee. That's where it's at right now. It's passed out of the study committee, then drafting committee. It's been drafted in final resolution form. And now we only have to make the final vote, which will be in July, to place it on the ballot as a commission.
Okay, so do we know when in July or just?
I believe July 6th or so is when we have that vote, but I'd
July
have to double
6th.
check
That's very appropriate right after Independence Day. So I think that would be very good for people to kind of show up and give public comment and say what you think about this, because I think it's going to be one of the most important charter amendments if it does get on the ballot, for people to decide and vote on. And I would predict if it does get on the ballot, I think that it will pass.
It will overwhelmingly pass, and I think some Democratic Party operatives may be quite surprised how many Democrats of their base supports this as well. So it's going to be bipartisan, at least how the electorate handles it.
Yeah. So what else do you have in the pipeline? So the supermajority requirement, that's in motion. What else do you have that's still coming around?
Yeah, next week I'm actually presenting on my next amendment that's still alive in the process. It's called home impact analysis. And so what this would do is whenever the county considers a new ordinance that would impact land use for residential purposes, construction costs for residential purposes, parking impacts for residential purposes, anything that would impact the material cost of homes, the county would therefore have to do a study to say how this would ultimately impact the price of homes, or price of construction, or just ultimately the downstream costs of homes. And so this would not necessarily prevent the county from passing new ordinances that regulate this, but it would force them to face the truth of how much it would ultimately cost people. Because if we're trying to make homeownership more affordable for more people, at least that's my goal. I don't know if that's shared with folks across the aisle, but that's my goal. And so I want to make sure that policymakers, when they're considering other things, also look at the costs. Because there are benefits to, adding new smoke detectors. Those are a valuable thing to prevent homes from being burned down. But we also should look at the cost of how much it costs to install them.
Or also climate-related policy and stuff like that, where it impacts, all of these costs. And again, it's what I like about your charter amendment is that it exposes kind of the hypocrisy of, people who want to pass policies and whatnot that are raising the costs of home and home ownership, but yet then they go out and campaign, oh, I'm for affordability, I'm for this,
Yeah.
But and the truth is their policy is just racking it up. So that's what I love about this is it's just adding visibility. It's giving information to everyone on the impacts, which shouldn't we be doing this already?
I think that should be standard for any regulation that we pass, whether for homes or anything. I mean, that should be the standard. And maybe they're just ignorant about how these policies will ultimately impact the price of things. And so this will definitely put it in their face, and at least give it to constituents to lobby for home things that will reduce the price of homes, or at least not prevent the increase of them. So.
Yeah. So let's talk about your charter amendments that maybe haven't had such a glorious outcome, but there's hope, right? There's hope maybe. So walk me through maybe a couple of your other ones, because I think there were some other ones that were just spot on, and I wasn't happy when they didn't go forward.
Yeah, one was pretty controversial. I think it was only two out of 2 verse 13 that voted for it out of first reading, but this one was more of a reaction of kind of a general frustration of watching the county council. I know you're a student of the county council too, so how much time they waste on proclamations that ultimately at the end of the day don't make anybody happy. I don't look to the county as some sort of moral guide myself. I tend to think about things myself, and I highly encourage other people to do that. And so I did put a measure to just, we don't need to hear the county's position on Charlie Kirk's assassination or ICE or these things. I want them to solve the sheriff's issue. I want them to solve our urban growth areas, to whether incorporate them or have them start their own cities, or I want them to solve the cost of living problems that we have here, or transportation. But when they start going in for federal issues that are sort of in contradiction of what they're doing, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give them a way out of it, a lifeline, so they can talk about more.
But no one took it. So what else did you put in the mix?
And this one was a similar amendment, but this one was specifically to prevent the county council from weighing in on amendments, whether to support or endorse amendments.
Was it council or just pretty much all county? I think it was all county, wasn't it? Or
it was primarily the council, but it would prevent people from bringing it up on their own official rolls. Like obviously, I don't want to get in. The intent of it was not to get in the way of any of their freedom of speech as individuals. If they wanted to individually say, I support this or I don't support this, but to have the body go in and weigh in on a charter amendment or on an initiative sort of defeats the entire purpose of these other institutions that we have, both the Charter Review Commission, which is deliberately put into the Washington State Constitution as a alternative to the county council,
right?
But also the people as well. They have the right to have initiatives, and generally initiatives are to go around the council, and so to have it go up to the council, whether to weigh in or not, I think kind of defeats the whole purpose of that check.
Because we have a situation now, he's retiring, but the auditor has really tried to put his thumb on the scale on many, like, for example, on my Restore Election Confidence Initiative, he was trying to undermine it. He actually wrote articles for the Reflector commentary that was, negative, not supporting it. It kind of backfired on him because he argued against ballot box cameras, and then 3-4 months later, as we had an attack on it, and everyone was like, "Man, wish we had video,
that would have
been, on the ballot boxes," and which they've reversed. And then even now, he's kind of going around to town halls and giving his opinion. Which again, I understand that people have their opinions, but it's pretty clear that county officials sometimes like to try to put their thumb on the scale, and especially when it comes to initiatives or charter efforts. I just think that that's really distasteful at minimum, but I think that there's kind of an ethical thing there too. So what else? Was there another one, or was that it?
I've
or?
had 4, so those are
Okay.
the 4.
Well, I really appreciate your efforts, and we'll definitely keep an eye on, in particular, the supermajority requirement that's coming up July 6th for a vote. So, and then also on your on the other one for the kind of assessment. What did you call it again?
Home impact analysis.
It's not as cool as supermajority requirement, because
Yeah.
when you have super in the word,
That is a cool word,
Like,
supermajority.
yeah, maybe you could add that. Maybe you could, like, awesome, whatever, something.
If you read the text of the supermajority one, there's a term I've learned. I've learned a few words during this process, but one of them is councilmanic, which
Oh.
means originated from the council in this context. But I got it from all the other examples of both. Yakima has it in their city charter, Spokane has it in their city charter, and Pierce County has it. And they all use this word councilmanic, and I do get to use that word in the language of it. So I think that's a pretty cool word.
So for your other one, we need to juice that up a little bit. We just need to come up with a title that, like, grabs people, or something like Bigly or something. I don't know.
I was thinking an acronym for it, because people are like, oh, we got to do that HIA report now.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being here, Commissioner John Jay, and
you're up.
keep up the great work.
Will do. Thank you for your support, and you keep up your good work as well.
All right. Thanks, man. Well, that's Reformcast for today, and so I really appreciate you coming in and listening to our conversation. And don't forget to look out for that July 6th meeting. Give public comment. Always give respectful, thoughtful comments in support, preferably. And tune in next time to the Reformcast. And remember, you are the catalyst of reform. See you next time.